I played a large game, not a huge game, but it's a big one.
It's not a 3-hour press rate to win game.
Yeah, apparently, yeah, it's not. So I played Prey, which came out in 2017. It is classified as a first-person shooter, which is not accurate. It is developed by Arcane Austin and is published by Bethesda Softworks. It was released for Windows, PS4, and Xbox One. It takes place in an alternate timeline in which an accelerated space race resulted in humanity taking to orbital stations far earlier. The player controls Morgan Yu while exploring the space station Talos 1 in orbit around the Earth moon, where they were part of a scientific team researching the Typhon, a hostile alien force composed of many forms of both physical and psychic powers, such as shape-shifting into a clone of any inanimate object. As the Typhon escaped confinement, the player uses a variety of weapons and abilities, some of which are derived from the Typhon themselves, to avoid being killed while looking to escape the station. The player gains access to areas of the station by acquiring key items and abilities, eventually allowing the player to explore the station in an open world setting. The game combines elements of role-playing games, stealth games, immersive sims, and Metroidvanias in its design. This is unrelated mostly to the 2006 game Prey, developed by Human Head Studios. Legally speaking, it is a reboot, but it is a reimagining of the IP set in a new narrative. The original game was supposed to get a sequel. It never happened. It was stuck in development hell for ages. A bunch of legal stuff got shifted around. It's basically an original property.
I've watched videos all about the first one, though. It looks really cool.
Yep. It is a spiritual sequel to System Shock, which would also put it words. Is a spiritual sequel to System Shock, which puts it alongside games like Deus Ex and BioShock, which frankly are my major comparisons for this game. So that, makes sense. Basically, when you really boil it down, this is, from where I'm sitting, BioShock plus Alien, kinda.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
So it is a game that takes place in the first person, and you use a lot of guns, but it is not a first person shooter whatsoever. It's not. Combat is secondary in this game to exploration.
It's more like a first person action game.
I'd call it more of a first person platformer. Describing it as a Metroidvania once you play the entire game is pretty accurate. You go back to areas very frequently because of new key cards or access codes to unlock new doors, unlock new safes, blah, blah, blah. And once you hit towards the end game where you can kind of just explore the entire facility, it's pretty freaking cool. Like just being able to fly through this place that took you 15 hours probably to clear originally. And the biggest reason for that is the glue gun. This weapon is so flippin' sweet. It's not really a weapon. It's like an engineering tool. Kind of like your Dead Spaces. It is a gun that shoots big wads of what looks like insulation foam. You can use these on almost all surfaces, excluding glass. They can't stack on top of each other, which is a technical thing. They had a lot stronger ambitions for the gun than they were able to actually execute. They wanted to be able to basically make it just infinitely stackable, but just the amount of rendering time and energy to do that is kind of crazy. So they found a kind of a happy medium in the middle. So it can't load onto glass and they don't stack on each other. But beyond that, you can put these things anywhere. And you can climb on top of them if you place them correctly. So you can go to so many areas you're not supposed to be in and usually get fucking demolished, but you can fuck around anywhere. It's really, really cool.
That is kind of the cool thing about this game anyway, is your build can really break the game too. If you don't have I can't remember what kind of powers you get in this game, but I know for a fact there's a doorway with big couches stacked in front of it, and you can use something like mind powers or a ray gun or something to shoot the couches out of the way, or you can build up your stats to like have the strength to move the couches, or you can use the glue gun and climb up a set of stairs you make and get in through a window next to the door or something. Like it's like Breath of the Wild style creativity that you need to play this game.
For sure. That's a very common occurrence, especially once you get further into the game. Almost every single new department, mostly, is kind of how the game categorizes its areas and levels. Is you have different departments and you have like sub-departments. So you can go to the hardware labs, includes like 18 different rooms and offices over 3 different floors. And most of those specific areas have stuff like that. They have barriers blocking your way, which you might need to have increased your strength statistics to pick it up. You can, a power that I didn't realize was there and is really fucking cool. You can mimic anything. You can get the power of the Typhon at one point in the game, and you can just play the game as like a coffee mug. Not the whole game, but for a little bit. It drains on your psychic powers. But to get through certain doorways, if you don't have the right stats and you don't have a key card to do whatever, you can mimic the right object and squeeze through gaps, which is really fucking fun. I only looked up like 2 things on my phone for this game the whole time. I was more than happy to put in the effort to learn how the systems work to be able to enjoy it fully. But yeah, the general game narrative, there's a few different endings, I think, but they're all pretty similar. The thing that I really appreciate about the RPG mechanics, I guess, is the fact that it doesn't majorly affect the end state of the game. It affects how you play it. And I really like that, as opposed to like massive, like narrative altering stuff. I like the fact that I can play the same game as you, and we can play the game very differently. But when I go, oh, hey, this department that you had to go to get this one thing, that one enemy was like really hard. Like the basics of the game are always there. You just can avoid them, whether it be by using the stealth system, which is pretty well functioning. It's not the craziest thing in the world, but you can crouch and, hide around objects. And especially in the early parts of the game, some of these enemies are hard as shit. So it's good to have options. And I feel like most of them are equally valid, whether it be upgrading your like physical abilities, so like strength and speed and health, or unlocking technological stuff, like upgrading your hacking abilities to get through doors faster, stuff like that. The psychic abilities are cool, but they're not as strong as I would have liked them to be.
If your shit is as hard as some of those enemies, I think you need a laxative. Yes.
There are certain psychic powers which I found extremely beneficial, like entering a combat state. So it slows time down, as well as mimicking and a few other things. But the amount of like sub menus you have to navigate to use the psychic powers, I think, is the biggest detractor for me. I also have like first person shooter brain. So I'm going to opt to fight things first. And I did that, and then it kept kicking my ass. And I went, oh, maybe I should stop. And then I tried. And it's worth it to try stealth sometimes. I appreciate that. It will be more time consuming by a long shot, but also you won't die 10 times in the same area. So learning how to navigate around stuff is cool. But the thing with that is if you avoid enemies in an area for a while and then have to go back, there will be more enemies. So it gets harder if you keep avoiding them. So I like that there's a kind of a tug of war there. If you just eliminate everything, there will be enemies that respawn eventually. There will be new ones that wander in from down the hall. And that makes going to old areas more interesting. But if you play stealth the whole game, you are going to get ass pounded towards the end because there are going to be so many enemies in some areas you won't be able to move.
How did you like the scares?
Okay, so it's spooky season, and I played a spooky game. This game got me a few times, but I appreciated the atmosphere more than anything else. This is kind of my type of horror, if I'm being honest. There are jump scares. There's literally jump scare like noises, but
it's how the enemies are designed. It's
Yes,
literally to be jump scares.
The base enemy design, the smallest life form, they just mimic objects. They'll run around a little bit here and there, but mostly they'll just be like, "I'm a cup," and you don't know that cup is not a cup, and then it'll just go. The first jump scare in the game scared the fucking shit out of me. This is the thing. So narrative-wise, the game opens up and it's boring as shit. You're like, wait, is this what I signed up for? It's a simulation and blah, blah. But the first time you encounter a mimic just scared the bejesus out of me. Not when you see it behind the glass attacking somebody else, which was freaky. But the first one, it's just later in the game, you'll fight off like dozens of these at the same time. But the first time when you're just in a back room with a wrench with pathetic levels of health and you just got a flashlight, it's fucking scary. But as the game goes on, it definitely gets less creepy. I mean, less scary. It keeps the creepy energy. And that's the thing I like. I like the setting. I like the science, the technology that they have going on. The lore is really interesting. The world building is phenomenal. I don't want to get into a lot of that because I will spoil it for you, and I do think it is worth finishing. But it begs a lot of questions. It gets a little philosophical about stuff. The jump scares are like an aesthetic thing. After a while, you get used to them. You literally gain an ability at some point to put it like a chipset into your goggles, basically, and you can see the mimics before like they do anything. You can walk into a room and it'll like tag where all of them are. So it does diminish the jump scares after a while, but the enemies start getting bigger, and there's some of them which are really fucking big. There's one of them, I believe it's called Nightmare, where you just have to run. It's a one-hit kill. You'll be dead. It's not going to go well for you. So it like you just walk into a random area. I think they're procedurally generated enemies. And like, it'll just go, oh, by the way, you need to run now. You have 3 minutes. And like, you just see this thing hauling ass towards you. It's like 50 feet tall. And you have to sneak around the place to try to avoid it until the timer runs out, which is fun. You can kill them, but it is incredibly difficult and not worth it.
You were talking about world building, and this game really relies on the player being smart and attentive.
Yes.
Like, there's so many puzzles where you'll see a flashback and there's a password written down, and then you come to the current time and the password is erased, and you have to figure out the password to get into the safe to get the key, but you had to be paying attention. You can't be on your phone. It's the same thing with the enemy, the mimics. It's like you walk into a room, you heard a whoosh, there's something here, and hey, wait a minute, why are there 2 coffee cups side by side next to the computer? Like,
right. I really appreciate that. I understand it does not make for a very normie friendly game for sure. If you're going in expecting a shooting game, you're not going to be happy. If you're walking in expecting like full horror, it's not that either. It's a very interesting sci-fi narrative with it's got a lot of heady stuff in it, but it doesn't shove it in your face, which is what I appreciate. Like, it asks you to engage with the ideas. Like, you'll find random books lying around all over the place because you're in a space station. There are hundreds of people that lived here. Most of them are dead now. But you'll just see books around. And when you go check out the book, it'll show you little excerpts of whatever they were reading. And a lot of them have implications on stuff. And trying to figure out where that all fits is really interesting. Or you could just avoid it entirely. Like, you don't have to engage with that. But when it comes to just general gameplay progression, you have to be really attentive because there are so many interactable computers in this environment, whether it be finding crew members, getting passwords, checking emails, resetting security systems. It's all over the place. And I really like that. It's a physical interactable computer in the world. It doesn't pull you into like a new interface. You just keep moving your head around the screen and you press buttons, which I quite like. The major twist that happens, I thought about, but I don't think the fact that I saw it coming diminishes from the thing that it asks about. If you are paying attention towards the beginning of the game, you'll probably, somewhere in your brain, you'll go, oh, maybe that's the twist. And the game plays out as normal. There is a post-credit scene, and that changes the game. And it's a little cheap to do that, but I don't mind it. It didn't bother me. Like I said, I saw it coming, but the fact that the game doubles down on a potential option was pretty nice. The narrative is very confusing in the beginning, like, because you wake up in an apartment, it's bright and sunny, you're going to your new job, oh my goodness, and then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, aliens, you're dead now. And then you wake up and it's all fucking crazy. Just the first little bit of gameplay where you break out of your apartment by like shattering windows and then turning out that they're one-way screens is fucking freaky. There's a lot of the game that has that in it. Like, a lot of the game does that. And I really, really like that. It's very tripping balls. There are a couple of jump scares they get that way. There's one in particular, which is definitely part of like a side quest thing, where it's having you like calibrate a screen with your like visor mode on. And there's a fucking enemy behind the screen, but it doesn't show you until you finish the calibration. Like, I knew it was going to happen, but oh my gosh, I slid down my chair. Because it's not just, there, it's in your face. And really, really good stuff. I like the fact that the jump scares are part of the narrative. It's not intended to just get your heart rate going to fuck with you. It encourages you to look at the world. And that's something which I think if you're not into, it's going to be hard to play this game. The fact that your base enemies are hidden throughout rooms and stuff, and you want to look for them so you don't, get attacked and potentially die. It makes you look at everything. So it makes you look at sticky notes and emails and bar stools, like everything, which is really thorough. And I really like that. That's like my type of thing. But if you're looking for like a 10-hour shooter experience, holy fuck, you're going to be bored to tears.
So you're saying this game appeased the OCD brain?
Oh my gosh, yes. Not in the sense that you can complete everything in one go through, but in the sense that it validated me taking 20 minutes to clear a room, because you collect so many raw materials and like you turn those nasty banana peels into craftable material. Like stuff like that really helps the world. And I'm really impressed by that. The thing with the gameplay, that, like I said, with the psychic powers, the control scheme isn't great. It's functional once you get used to it, but it's not the best. And when it comes to gunplay, it's not that good either. They're tools. It's not a shooting game. And I like that. I don't know. You play Dead Space. Most of your weapons in Dead Space are mining tools. They're not guns, but they do kind of play out like guns sometimes. This, you do get actual weapons, but they don't come across as like, oh, sick, I got the golden gun, I'm going to go shoot some stuff. It's like, well, when I encounter this one type of enemy, I'm going to need to use this weapon because I have limited ammunition, but it's going to absolutely wreck their shit. Like, I played most of the game with my wrench out just because, one, mimics, the little jump scare monsters are fucking annoying, and wasting ammunition on those is a bad idea. But like, I don't know. There's a few different enemy types. There's like specific subsections. You get your, electric types. You get your like phantom-y teleporty types. I used a handgun for a lot of it. I won't deny that, but that's mostly because it's really easy to use. Using the glue gun constantly can kind of get old. It's great for platforming, and it's really cool because it freezes enemies in place. But I blew through so much glue gun ammunition, and just to get up close and hit them a few times and then retreat to do it again gets a little repetitive. So I ran out of gun ammunition constantly. I was not afraid to use my guns, but just they're clunky. It's really, really clunky. The control scheme in general makes walking around and like interacting with stuff a little finicky. And that's why I thought of BioShock, because BioShock has better shooting mechanics by a long shot. That is a very combat-based game, but it still has a very dense body feel. It's the thing in Destiny that I really, really don't like, is you feel like a big hulking massive unit, But in Destiny, it's a really snappy shooter, so that does not fucking work. In this game, it works. It can just be kind of annoying if you're used to moving faster or more precisely. It's just rough, which was probably better on PC. I played this on Xbox, so take that for what you will. Technologically speaking, to finish out, so I don't rant forever, graphics are very good. Nothing stupendous. I played this on the Xbox Series X with maximum settings on, a 4K monitor, blah, blah, blah. It definitely looks better on PC. I've looked at the screenshots that people captured during the marketing campaign, and it can look a lot better than how it was running on mine. Frame rate was consistent. I didn't have any issues with that. It was consistently running at 60, but the polygons, like the models, the 3D models had a lot of polygons. They were very detailed, but it seemed like the textures and like the actual overlays were pretty low res. So in motion, everything looks really nice, but if you stare at something long enough, it kind of looks like shit. Low lighting environments really help with that, which was quite nice. There are a lot of those, especially out in space. When you go outside of the space station for a few segments, it all looks really, really nice. It just, I don't know. When you spend most of the game staring at coffee mugs, eventually the coffee mugs start looking like fucking video game coffee mugs.
Eventually the coffee mugs start staring back.
Pretty much. Beyond that, technologically speaking, I had no real like buffering problems. It didn't crash. Everything performed smoothly. The menus are very nice. They're nothing stupendous, but they're very functional. The user interface in-game is a little less great. I appreciate the gun having a built-in ammo count. I'm a big sucker for those. But the map and like inventory user interface is kind of shit. It just takes a while to navigate. It doesn't always load correctly either. So sometimes you have to like load the map, close it, load it up again for it to load everything correctly. I'm not sure what's up with that. It just required a lot of use of the bumpers and triggers to navigate all of the menus because there's so many different things running on the back end, which is kind of a necessity. It just makes it a pain in the butt.
You have a lot of things running on your back end.
Mm-hmm. Sound design and music is out of this world awesome. The game relies on you having an attentive ear, and I really appreciate that. I was playing with headphones the whole time. I was playing in like a quiet apartment with the doors closed and no lights on, so I was hyper-focusing. After a while, the jump scare noises and like enemy has been alerted type noises kind of get annoying, especially if you're trying to like run through areas with a shit ton of enemies. It just gets annoying. But that's more so because there's a lack of variety. The recordings in and of themselves all sound good. It's just kind of a few sounds and that's it. So I would have appreciated a little bit more variety in the, alerts, basically. The jump scare noises aren't overplayed, which is nice. It's all solid. The sound of your feet on the different materials you're running on, the interactable objects all sound really, really good. Dropping a coffee mug doesn't sound the same as dropping a bottle of wine. They were very thorough with their noises. And the soundtrack / musical score, composed by God himself, Mick Gordon, is fucking awesome. I have never heard anything bad from this man, and I probably never will. It's not as unique or memorable as something like Doom, obviously, but it's very good. The main theme is nice. It runs quietly in the background. Each of the departments have different musical tracks, which is nice, which makes for good. It's very low level background music, so you can still hear the actual game and know the difference between the music and the game.
So basically, next time I'm over at your place and you're playing the Prey original soundtrack, I'm just going to have like an air horn that I'll just blast every once in a while to scare the crap out of you.
Yeah. It's good. It's very thorough. And that's the thing that I think in general is the best way to describe this game. It's thorough. And I don't feel like there's any element that was thrown in at the last minute or underdeveloped. I think there are parts that are under polished. So they could have used some more time in the oven, but the materials, the ingredients were all there. They just, the bread had the yeast. It just wasn't in the oven long enough. I played on normal difficulty, which is the second hardest before you get into like the ultra crazy gonna smash your pelvic modes. And it was moderately difficult. I died plenty, which is part of the game. You're not supposed to not die. I can understand wanting to play this on like narrative mode though. I considered it for a hot second because the narrative is really the draw here. The gameplay is mostly just functional. Yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure Benedict Wong plays your brother in this game. I'm going to check that right now because I heard his voice so many times during so many phone calls in this game. And it just, I swear.
Technical difficulties.
Yes, I knew it. Yeah, Benedict Wong plays your brother who also works at this corporation. He's a bad guy. He calls you on the phone all the time. I kept hearing his voice and I'm like, Wong, how you doing? I really enjoyed this. It's got some problems. It's a little rough. And if it's not your type of game, you're going to be miserable. I played it for 27 hours to complete the main narrative and probably 50% of the side quests-ish. Like I said, I'm very thorough. So it's hard to tell what part of the game is like required to finish and what part is a side quest. And that's good game design. I'm going to finish more stuff before I move on to my next game. I'll probably throw in another day or two's worth of effort to wrap up some more stuff. Real good shit.
Nice. How much did you get it for?
I purchased this for $5 at, I believe I bought this at Jetpack, actually.
Really?
Every once in a while, Jetpack has some decent games on their game rack, and they're usually pretty cheap. Yeah, I bought it for maybe $7 tops.
What would be your suggested price?
I would have bought this for full price. So
interesting.
Up to 60. There are 2 expansions for the game. One of them is a procedurally generated battle mode, basically. And the other one is a multiplayer PvP. I think it's weird that those cost money, but I would rather have that than them be narrative expansions. You pay $15. It's a whole different game mode. That makes sense, like on a development cycle. You made the game, the narrative is done, but you still want to support the game after release. And people are like, oh, well, we want to play multiplayer. And you're like, fine, we'll make a multiplayer mode, but you have to pay for it.